What is up, YouTube? I am Eric and you are watching Retro Video Game Pickups. In this video we are talking about weird and somewhat enjoyable Game Boy Color games. So if you like games, consoles, or product reviews, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification. With that being said, let's hop into it. Okay, so this channel is revolved around retro video games. So I decided to take a handheld that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I wanted to talk about it with you guys. Now, you can tell on my shirt is a retro video game pickup shirt. It is a Game Boy. But in this video, we are talking about the Game Boy Color. Now, I kind of dug through my Game Boy Color games, and I wanted to talk about some games that off the top don't look like any fun, but once you dig deep into them and you actually play them, you can actually have a lot of fun. Now, all of these games that I'm talking about are really cheap as well. So if you have, say, 30 bucks to spend, you can buy yourself a Game Boy and 2 or 3 of these games and have some fun. Maybe you're going to spend a little bit more depending on which game you decide, but all of these games are something that I enjoy to play, but I also think they're weird and wacky games, and they're not what you normally would think of when you think of the Game Boy Color. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and hop into it and see what the first game is, and I am going to talk about a bunch of these games, and I enjoy all of them. Okay, so the first game we're going to be talking about is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Now, I want you to know that yes, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out on both the Nintendo 64, the PlayStation, and the Sega Dreamcast. And if you're like me, you loved the games. Now, whenever I found out there was a Game Boy version on the Game Boy Color, you know I had to pick it up. Well, I picked it up, and I was very, very disappointed in it. But that is because I came from playing the Nintendo 64 version to playing the Game Boy Color version. And I was expecting a lot, and I had my goals set high, and I picked it up and played it and hated it and put it to the wayside. Years later, I actually sat down and actually played it, and I actually ended up enjoying it. Now, this has a few different modes to it, and I think they all fit well. Now, if you start up the game, you are hit with that half-pipe mode. You go back and forth, and it's not much given to you, honestly. And I think that is what turned me off. The first time I played it, I was like, I cannot play this. But then you're given the tournament mode, which is a lot of fun. I love the street down view. It gives me kind of a Paperboy kind of vibe to it whenever I'm playing it. And so I think this is a very fun game. Now, people gloss over it and don't realize that just because when you open it up, you see what it is, and you're just like, this is all it is, I don't want this game. And that's what I did. So I want to tell you guys, go and pick this game up and have some fun with it. I definitely have spent probably 5 to 10 hours actually playing this game, which is kind of a lot for a Game Boy game when it comes to something like this. So I think this is one that you should be playing, because if you got a few minutes, few hours, it could be a lot of fun. Okay, so this next game is Rocket Power Getting Air. Now, if you are, yet again, like me, you are a 90s kid and you loved Rocket Power. I loved everything about it. They had skating, they had actual skateboarding, they had surfing, they had mountain biking, they played street hockey. All of it was for me as a kid. I loved all that stuff, and so I wanted to play this game. Now, whenever you get into this game, it is a little slow and it takes a little bit. But if you play it a little bit, you'll get used to it and you'll kind of figure it out. And that's why I wanted to talk about this. This game is an interesting game, and it's one of those games that could go either way. You could either love it or you could hate it. It just depends on how patient you are and kind of what you feel about this. It has 4 different modes. The surf one's cool. The snowboard one's cool. What is the rest? The mountain biking one. And literally, this is a game that's fun. It's a slow-paced game, but if you're younger and you enjoy kind of these extreme sports, this is one that's for you. It's a pretty cool game. It's nothing crazy. It's not pushing the boundaries of the system or anything like this, but it's a cheap game. So you could put it in there, play for 20 minutes, play for 30 minutes, play for an hour, and get your money's worth, because honestly, it's a cheap game and it's enjoyable. So that's why I wanted to talk about this game here, is because I think this is one that when I thought of it, I thought, wow, this is such an awesome game. Rocket Power was something I loved as a kid, and so seeing it on the Game Boy was such an awesome feeling. Okay, let's talk about Tom and Jerry. Now, this is literally just labeled Tom and Jerry for the Game Boy Color, and it's a fun game. It's a platformer, and when I play it, it reminds me of an okay platformer. It's not your top-of-the-line Mario platformer. It's not the terriblest, but it's not the best either. Like, it's okay. I'd say it's like a 6 out of 10, 7 maybe. But it's one of those games you see, you just pass over. It's Tom and Jerry, no one's gonna play that. But it could be actually pretty fun if you like platforming games. Now this reminds me of the NES game, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. It's really basic platforming. It's not great platforming, but it's not terrible. It's just okay. And so I think this is one of those games that if you're a platformer enthusiast and you like platformers, but maybe you can't afford that Mario game or something of that caliber, I think Tom and Jerry could be like a cheap Mario, like a knockoff Mario game. I could see that. So I wanted to kind of include that in here just because I saw it and I was like, I feel like this is a game that would be glossed over. You see Tom and Jerry and you think of the cartoon and then you just move on. But it's got some fun platforming portions of the game, and I think that it's not a terrible game, so I decided to add it. Now, it's not the best game on this list, but it's not also the worst game on the console, so I figured, why not? Let's talk about it. No one ever does. Okay, so this next game we're going to be talking about is the Powerpuff Girls Bad Mojo Jojo, and I picked this up for $1 at the antique store, and so I figured, why not? Let's talk about it. Let's see what I think about this game. Well, you boot it up and you fly around as a Powerpuff Girl, and it reminds me of Home Alone, the NES version, and it's not a great game. To be honest, it's not a good game. But it could be something that could be fun if you're one of those people that likes to play those games where you gotta catch everything. Now, I'm not talking about Pokemon here, but you gotta catch them all. But this is kind of like if you mix like Pokemon and you mix that Home Alone version of the NES. And it's okay, it's not terrible, it's not great, but it does have some fun aspect of it. It's one of those games that I actually ended up finding myself playing it more, but I wasn't like blown away. I was just kind of getting lost in the house and the lab and all that, and so I thought it was interesting flying around. It controlled actually pretty well. You can do like this magic boost potion thing that like hits the enemies away, but then you can also punch them. It's interesting. You can fly for a certain amount and then the bar at the top goes down and then you land and then it recharges. So that's cool. Like that's something, seeing that on the Game Boy is pretty cool, but I don't know what it is. Everything when I see it, when I play it, it takes me back to playing Home Alone on the NES. And I just was not a fan of that game. Some people were, but I don't think it was a great game. And so I kind of have those flashbacks and it isn't great. It's not settling. And it's kind of like, okay, this is a great game. It's not a great game. Let's be honest. It's just like a 5 out of 10. But it's a Game Boy Color game that you could buy for pretty cheap, like $1, and I definitely would say I got $1's worth of enjoyment out of it. So maybe if you are walking around in a pawn shop in a thrift store and you see this game for $1, why not pick it up throw it on your system and play it for 20 minutes and you'll be happy, I guess. I mean, you could do worse by spending $1. And the last game that we're going to be talking about is Commando Keen, and well, you can tell I don't have a label for it. When I got this, it didn't have a label, and I wasn't too worried about it. That's okay, I knew what it was, stuck it in, and it worked in my console, so I'm not complaining. Now, if you ever played the Sega Genesis, you know about Toe Jam and Earl. And that's a weird and wacky, over-the-top game. The sound effects is weird, the graphics are cool, they're vibrant colors and all that. And that's what I think Commander Keen is. Whenever I play it, I boot it up, instantly I'm taken back to playing Toe Jam and Earl. And they recently released a Toe Jam and Earl re-release on the Nintendo Switch, and I had the opportunity of playing through that, and so I was just going back to that. Like, playing that on my Switch reminds me of playing this on my Game Boy. Like, if they were to say, okay, take this version of a console game and put it into this handheld game system back in the 90s, this is exactly what I would have expected. Like, I would have fun playing this game, and I do have fun playing this game. It's a weird and wacky platformer, and it's just over the top, and I think that's what makes this game good. Now, this is a really good game, at least in my standards for the Game Boy Color. Now, there are some top-notch Game Boy Color games, but I think this is probably one of them. It's not the very best, but I think it's a good and maybe a great game when it comes to Game Boy Color. I have a lot of fun playing it, and you would too. I don't think it's very expensive, but yet again, I got this in a bundle forever ago, and so I didn't spend a lot of money on it. So I wanted to talk about you guys with those Game Boy Color games that are often overlooked. They're games that you could buy for really cheap and have a lot of fun with. And so that's why I decided to talk about these. Now, everyone knows about the big Game Boy Color games. You're talking the Pokemon games and all kinds of stuff like that. But I wanted to take a step back and talk about some games that could be fun depending on what kind of games you're into, but they're also going to be cheap and they're not going to break your budget. So if you've got 30 bucks and a system, you could probably buy a few of these games and have some fun with it. So with that being said, I want to know what you think. Comment down below and let me know what you think about these games. Would you play them? Would you pass on them? What do you think about them? I want to say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification because it lets you know when I post more videos, which is every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And I want you guys to know that I am so thankful for you watching. I want to make sure you guys are safe, stay home, social distance, wash your hands, do all that stuff. That way you guys are safe and continue having fun and playing video games. So with that being said, one last time, thank you so much for watching and make sure you have a good day.